Hello and welcome to the Jesu Otaku anime review. Today's review could be presented a little out of order. Thanks. So if that drives you wacky at all, then you might want to make tracks. Hey bartender!
You selected 1930 as the point these stories began. Why? Perhaps you'd like some help.
So here's where the trouble started, far as I know. Kimura and Mafioso are ventilating each other again, knocking over speakers to get a shot at the Don, the usual tussles. But something's unusual, see? The transcontinental flying pussyfoot, a real snazzy black calliope. Well, maybe it started there. With the white coats, the black coats, and a few sorry bootleggers all blasting Tommies at each other while this rail tracer monster eats up the track. But maybe it started later with this goon, Dallas Genuard, who turned up missing, except before all that, he wasn't missing. And here's some other Joes were getting in a lather over some bathtub gin that could bring a man eternal life, or so's the static around the Big Apple. That's where all this trouble started, when a goof in his mall pulled a caper on the Mafia. If you want to start there, that is. Because in this city, the end is the beginning is the middle, and the crumbs who don't know no better just might get dead, unless they're one of them immortals who time does not concern.
Yeah, I'm fine. They hit you?
But they got you! I saw them cut you to shreds with my own two eyes!
'Cause no matter where the story starts, they're where the trouble started. Alright, I'll spare you any more of that god-awful accent, but that bizarre summary you just endured is random and piecemeal for a reason. This series' presentation is so unique that to tell you any more than I already have would be ruinously spoilery, and it's almost too much to have even said anything at all. I'll explain in a minute. On the technical side of things, the attention to detail throughout this show is exceptional. A lot of anime series taking place in Western settings, especially historical ones, can be facepalm-worthy in their anachronisms, but it's clear that the artists helming Baccano here have done their research. The animation here is pretty solid, too, not without a couple hiccups and jerkiness, but that jerkiness just adds to the glorious chaos most of the time, so no complaints here. Occasional rigidness always comes with this level of detail, from the characters' subtle expressions to every bit of brain that gets spattered across the floor when someone gets shot in the puss. The end result comes off as both gritty and classy all at the same time, and that counts the music too. It's all time period appropriate scoring with lots of harmonica, ragtime, but mostly very loud jazz. The opening theme is also not just exceptionally snazzy, but very helpful as it introduces most of the important characters and briefly flashes back to the snippets of the story that will be relevant in the upcoming episode. So it joins that tiny little pantheon of anime openings that are just plain unskippable. Now, for as much hubbub as has been made about the dub, I think it's important to point out that the Japanese cast of Baccano is exceptional. They go beyond the archetypal acting we're used to in this sort of thing, and really do an incredible job capturing all the insane roles, play off of each other great. Baccano sounded awesome before the dub, and the Japanese cast deserves their due. Now that that's out of the way, you absolutely must watch the English version of this show instead, because it's even better.
Think you can fit one more into your busy schedule?
Whatever you need, pal. But I haven't washed the blood and grease and piss from my tools yet. So I get the feeling it's gonna hurt a lot. I'm sorry about that.
The acting isn't better, no. The acting is just as top tier, but it's the cultural element that adds all the flavor here. A few of the accents are a little forced, but for the most part, all the 30s gangster slang and rich variety of styles, not just New York, but a pack of Chicago thugs and numerous European immigrants as well.
I have no other choice. You shouldn't do it. You can't do it. He can't be trusted. Smile, miser. With all eternity before him, even that old man might change.
Really brings out the atmosphere as only a well-done American casting could have for this idea. Despite the fact that we're really listening to a bunch of rather talented Texans. Yeah. This is one of the very best dubs out there, with a good mix of familiar veterans and complete newbies alike in leading roles.
How are we to avenge our friend if he can't talk, much less find his own face? Oh, Dune, you poor faceless bastard.
Yes, sir.
The crying bothers us.
It's a nervous condition. It's not crying.
I can use these guys.
Now, for the grand majority of you that don't speak Italian, Baccano is a slang term for ruckus, racket, confusing white noise, and it could not be a better name for this gangster tale, which, as I hinted, begins at the end of 3 different yet related stories, then jumps to the beginning of these 3 stories, and then continues to jump around between them until everything comes full circle, tying the style into the premise that these events are being rummaged through in newspaper clippings to be selectively reported by a newspaper called The Daily Days, which features heavily at the end of the 3rd story. It also ties into the idea that there is no one story or one angle to take on anything, that nothing can really be separated from the mess that is life. But that sounds awfully deep, and that's one thing Baccano cannot be accused of. Despite the seemingly heavy content, this series maintains a bright and joyous tone all the way through, fast-paced, wickedly clever, and buckets of fun. The problem and the turnoff for most people is that it begins with a roar and a clamor and doesn't really clarify itself. Throughout at least the 1st episode, and at most about the 3rd, you will be completely confused, as characters, events, and organizations are thrown around ramshackle with no one lead to follow, while crazy crooks have weird conversations and endless violence ensues.
Yes. No. What sort of a weak, parasitically minded plan is that? Still no. Hell no!
Hang tough, though, and it soon falls into place, not only just making sense, but being perfectly paced to reveal all the right twists at just the right times, albeit out of order, and result in an unforgettable story you're definitely going to want to rewatch as well. But what really makes it a pleasure to stick around, even twice or thrice, is the characters, every one diverse and captivating, despite there being a veritable trainload of them.
I'm, sorry for the confusion.
The colorful cast ranges all over, from knuckleheaded robber couple Isaac and Miria,
As long as we're together, I could be the president, I could be a king or a queen, I could even be a joker!
I don't know what that means, but it's incredible!
to suave gangsters like Firo and the Gandors, to murderous psychos like Lad, and pyros and bootleggers like Nice and Jacuzzi. Yes, that's his name. But as you may have noticed from the descriptions, none of them are traditionally good people, with the exception of grade-A douchebag Dallas Genward's sister, Eve, who is a brave little saint. But just because they're a little wicked doesn't mean they're not extremely likable and endlessly fascinating. Even the wholly despicable Dallas is a blast to watch.
It's freaking unbelievable!
That's all this series can be boiled down to, really. An enormous, ecstatic, explosive blast. The series is so thoroughly enjoyable and satisfying that it's hard to find nits to pick, but the problems that do exist are glaringly obvious. Like the series, these characters are smartly written, but lack much depth or complexity, and the numerous romances in the story are sweet, but underdeveloped and cliché, particularly by anime standards. Because the execution of this mad adventure is so good, this shouldn't bother most people, but there are going to be a few viewers that can't get past how morally reprehensible this series can be, and how you're supposed to enjoy it for that. For most of us, though, you don't have to try to enjoy the mayhem. It's just impossible not to get caught up in this train ride all the way to the explosive end of the line.
What the hell just happened?
Baccano is available from Funimation. The original novels by Ryogo Narita have not been released stateside, and a manga version illustrated by Ginyu Shijin also has yet to be released in the West. You know, I don't think this hat is very flattering on me, do you? I don't know. All in all, Baccano lives up to its name with dozens of eccentric characters crisscrossing throughout a scrambled storyline, but far from trying to confuse or provoke, Baccano's assault of violence and insanity is all in the spirit of fun and games, and is even incredibly successful at tugging rather gently on heartstrings, too. The pleasures are simple here if you pay even just a little bit of attention, but that doesn't mean they're not incredibly well done. This is a tentative gateway drug title, keeping in mind the incredibly mature content and high level of gore, but everything else about Baccano is lighthearted, eye-popping, and jumbled just enough to make it an exceptional experience. I give Baccano 3.5 D-fingerings.